thank you guys so much for coming. Sorry for the technical delay. Oh, there we go. And so we're going to be discussing today academic wilderness medicine, finding your niche in the urban wilderness. We have no financial disclosures.
But we're working on it.
And really, we want you walking away understanding the fundamentals of academic wilderness medicine, and then how you can really build this into your career to be something sustainable. Implementing your passions for educational and research ideas into action and how to utilize resources appropriately. And then compare and contrast some different pathways of development of one's niche, and we'll show you kind of how we each got into doing something that we love, and you'll just see there's many different options and pathways for that. Identifying potential barriers that you may come across, and then how to overcome those. And also talking about some continuing professional activities and academic advancement. So again, you can make this a sustainable part of your career. So starting us off, Dr. Stuart Harris is going to talk to us a little bit about wilderness medicine and academic wilderness medicine in general.
Thank you. Hello all, thank you for your patience. I'm just going to give a quick primer and overview of what wilderness medicine is. So we came up with this definition a few years ago, and I think it does a pretty good job of laying out what it is wilderness medicine is. I think some people think of, you have to be in a wilderness area, you have to be using splints and improvisation exclusively. Where I see wilderness medicine in our community does is having a much bigger reach. And so using the definition of the provision of resource-limited medicine under austere conditions gives an idea of the range of places where we are very active. I'm also very often asked, it's like, oh, wilderness medicine, this is new and different. And I've been asked that question now for 15 years. Where was the start of wilderness medicine? And my argument is that it started about 2,400 years ago outside with a doctor and a patient under a tree, and just that direct human contact that is the bedrock of any good medical encounter is the source of Western medicine and is the source of wilderness medicine. And so I see wilderness medicine as largely an end run, opportunity to try to bring humanism back to medicine, to keep it central to medicine. What is wilderness medicine as far as our independent subject area? Looking back at emergency medicine, the criticisms it received 40 years ago as, this isn't a real specialty, it's just a bunch of different things. It's like, that's exactly what emergency medicine is, and similarly, that's exactly what wilderness medicine is. There is a defined subject area that we alone are the experts in, and that is teachable and testable and has clinical results. And it can be everything from altitude to disperism, to exposures, environmental or insect or ophidian or any other of a range of different but definable areas of expertise. The fellowships are a way to expand the reach of wilderness medicine expertise. We started our program in 2005. Stanford's was right at the same time. They were before us, but I think roughly that time. I graduated from fellowship in 2003, and there wasn't from residency in 2003, and there wasn't a wilderness medicine fellowship at that time. And we've gone rapidly from 2 at that time to 18, and on the cusp of 19 this year, and widely scattered across the country, which is heartening. We've just come from a GME review committee where already we have 5 of these programs have been reviewed by the SAEM GME committee. So there's a standardization, there's a curriculum, and things are moving rapidly forward. The growth of wilderness medicine has been profound during that time. The research side of things, the clinical experience, and then one of the great things that wilderness medicine does is it's a great gateway drug for medical students, pre-meds, for residents to get in and teach direct patient care that sometimes medical schools don't do a very good job at, and sometimes, unfortunately, even residencies don't focus on just basic approaches to human care. And that's something that I think we do well. An area that I'm especially proud of is to see the rapid growth of climate change and human health being recognized as a completely valid lane of medicine that we need to be advocating for these very human effects that are happening right now because of climate change. And the climate change in human health interest group and efforts of SAEM are directly derived from wilderness medicine, and we have a close affiliation still. So where is wilderness medicine practiced? It can be practiced in wilderness areas, on tents and on glaciers, but it can also be practiced throughout the developing world as a course of daily business. It can be practiced in the first world after natural disasters, after man-made disasters. So after Hurricane Sandy, Manhattan, that was wilderness medicine. Northern Japan, world-class first world medical system that's been quickly reduced to rubble, that's wilderness medicine. And then again, my argument for this all is it's all about becoming a better doctor everywhere, not just about when you're outside. So why wilderness medicine? It's critical, I think, to get beyond the idea of a defined box that we call an academic medical center or a hospital to just because a patient can't get to you does not mean they're not deserving of world-class medical care. So expanding the reach of medicine is absolutely critical to what we do and to the future of medicine. I see us leading the house of medicine in this regard. Again, for me, it gets back to the idea of this essential interaction, not putting a computer between you and your patient, not thinking about what labs you're going to be drawing when you should be actually making eye contact and engaging with the human being before you. Teaching a good physical exam and teaching people how to use their brains so that when they do start checking the boxes, they're confirming a diagnosis that they've already made rather than just throwing a CT at belly pain. These skills, it was heartening. We had our residency-wide dinner last night, and I had 3 separate residents come up, and they had been on our Medicine in the Wild course, and we co-teach with Knowles, and they're saying that it was the best didactic month we had in our entire 4 years, just as far as approaches to patient care. So this is something that the skills we teach outside are durable and they're transferable to the bedside inside. A large part of the way I think we're helping advance things is we're pushing out tools and technologies and innovations that allow expertise in diagnosis and in treatment outside of hospitals. And that's a significant portion of what we do. And then resilience. So with disaster awareness and disaster preparation increasingly front and center after 9/11 and then multiple episodes since, we've worked very well with the MGH disaster community. I know this has happened broadly across the country and internationally, but the idea that if you don't have people who are expert in the outside, you can have your MPH in disaster management, but if you don't know how to stay warm, dry, keep your patients similarly so to dispose of your waste so you're not seeding Haiti with cholera that they didn't have before, you know, that's pretty critical to us succeeding as a disaster and medical team. The idea of innovative technologies, our expertise in going places that the rest of the world does not, allows us a special access to some of the best people in the world. And I use the ecological model of, you know, if you're something that lives very well in a boiling hot spring in Yellowstone, then your niche is very, very different than the vast majority of the bugs in the world, and you have unique capacities. And so whether it's ultrasound, portable magnetic resonance devices, some of the bench scientists we work with, it's purely the fact that we're experts at high altitude or we're experts at wherever we go that make us an especially attractive option, and they approach us for ways we can move forward. The basic overarching mission of wilderness medicine is no different from emergency medicine. It's that three-legged stool we all know of teaching, research, and clinical care. And anywhere we're active, I want us to be doing all three. So some places we're there for clinical work, some places we're there for research, but we ought to try to be doing all three of them anywhere we are. And with that, I will stop, and if you have any questions afterwards, you know where to find me.
All right, so this is the exciting part, right? Wilderness medicine is what got you here. You're excited about it. It's the cool, sexy part of medicine. It's actually the part to get you out of the seats, get you out doing fun stuff, right? So how do you find out what is your passion in medicine? And so those of us up here, wilderness medicine is one of our passions, one of the things we like. I guess I'm not supposed to speak in the mic, but it's the things we like. Things we like about medicine, the fact that we get to be outside, we get to engage with student learners, we get to engage with people that are excited about learning processes and learning things, right? How many times you go into a shift? So do we have any med students here? One med student? How about residents? So how many times have you gone into a shift as a resident, and you're like, God, got to work with that person again. Right. Or that particular patient or something. You know, there's something about it that just seems like a drag, right? So if you're outside doing something fun, something cool, you could be taking care of the exact same patient with the exact same problem, but you have to think of it in a different way. And so it's just a different way to reframe how you take care of people. And so one of the challenges is how do you get that? How do you get that and keep it, right? Keep that little spark in there. Keep yourself kind of engaged and encouraged. People that were at my previous talks will hear me. I talk about med students being golden retrievers because they're just energetic and they like go after things. And they want to please, and they're just so excited, and they're just really, really happy, right? And they just want to be engaged. They want it. Oh, I'll go get the ball. Go get the ball. Go get the stick. Go get the stick. You know, they come back, just bring the ball up to you. Bring the ball up to you. You know, you got to keep giving them direction so they can make them into a service animal, that's what a resident is, right? They actually get the job done. And it's okay. I love golden retrievers. I have one. Don't have a service animal yet, but I'm working on it. But you know, you learn things, but you don't lose that enthusiasm. And that's the hard part about medicine, because we work really hard to grind that out of you, with off-service rotations that are career reaffirming, with consultants who are jerks, with shifts that are variable, working holidays, nights, and weekends. All the things that you're like, that sounds really cool. You know, to get the ER weekend of a Tuesday and a Wednesday off during the week. You know, those are kind of nice sometimes, but when your friends don't have any, no time off, it's not as cool. So we work really hard to kind of squash that urge and that enthusiasm and put that fire out. But this wilderness medicine is a great way for you to build that fire back up and keep it up, because people are going to keep coming to you. Those golden retrievers are going to keep coming up to you. Hey, help me out. And you'd be amazed how much energy we all get from that interaction with the medical students and with the residents. You get it when you're a resident. You get it from the medical students when they come up to you, right? They're encouraged, and you're like, well, I feel pretty good about this shift. The attendings in the group, when you have an eager resident who is willing to learn and wants to put the work in, you feel great about it. You feel like you've accomplished something. So it's a great way for you to really pull that in. And it doesn't matter what your expertise is in wilderness medicine. If you like any part of medicine, you can do it outside or in a limited resource setting. And that's wilderness medicine. You know, Stuart does, wilderness medicine in Alaska. Hillary and Lara have done it in Nepal. Jay's done it all over the place. I do a lot on soccer fields or in the parking lot at, school sporting events where kids have accidents and broken things. And you patch things up so you don't have to take them to the hospital right away, or you've got time. So you can practice it anywhere you don't have all the things you normally have in your clean, well-lit room, right? And it's just kind of a great way to do it. You go into your shift and say, how would I do this, and how would I take care of this if I didn't have all these tools and all these things? So that's your challenge as a resident. Your next shift you go back, think about how you would take care of this if you didn't have the ortho tech to call, right? How would you do this particular task if you don't have that? How are you going to rehydrate somebody when you don't have an IV? What can you do? How can you manage these conditions when you don't have all the other resources you normally have? And think about getting involved with your community. Doing things with your medical students are great. Getting involved with community groups. I told the group yesterday, we're doing a beer and Band-Aids first aid course at a local brewery next week. We have almost 200 people signed up to come out for an evening. We got a couple of local gear companies that are sponsoring it, giving out free T-shirts and first aid kits and things like that. Everybody's just it's a community involvement. It's a free thing. You're getting out there and you're teaching somebody something. And they're like, hey, this is kind of cool. You get involved. There's the Wilderness Medical Society has a couple of standard student electives, and a lot of the other places have student electives. Like you can kind of get involved with that, go out and lecture for a day or two, go out and be a mentor, hike on the backpack trip. The Wilderness Medicine Student Conferences is a great way to be involved too, because I run one in the Southeast, and we always need speakers, and anyone here would be eligible to be a speaker. Just contact me, because you can teach, you can share your knowledge, and that's what's going to spark that enthusiasm and spark that fire, keep you going, keep you, you'll be more the service animal, but you'll still be a golden retriever. You'll still have that fire and that spark, And that's what wilderness medicine is. For me, it's the way to kind of really engage this, and it's made my whole academic career. I've been able to get promoted with this and help my friends get promoted with this. So it's a great way for folks in academics to really find their niche and develop it. And you don't have to do 1 million hours of cardiovascular research, which all my colleagues do. So, but seriously, we're open for questions. We hope that you guys are, you're obviously interested in wilderness medicine. If there's any way any of us can help you, we'll be available after this to talk about it.
So it's a perfect transition. Thank you, Henderson. So moving on to some of the residents, and I know we have a good chunk of residents here. And one of the points of this talk is to show you that even though you may practice in a very urban setting, which raise your hand if you're a resident and you do practice in a city. Yeah, most of us as residents have. It can be challenging to be able to physically place yourself in the wilderness to practice wilderness medicine. But what you might see is that you actually do have an advantage being in the city because academic wilderness medicine is situated in a lot of these institutions and your resources are just at your fingertips. So we're just going to go through a little bit about some things you can do as residents, educating your medical students, networking, deliverables, utilizing your elective time appropriately, and then finding your niche within a niche. And we'll just run through each of these briefly. So networking, attending conferences just like you're doing right now, getting to meet some of us, learning about the different opportunities you can have to teach is perfect. There are section meetings with SAEM and ASEP, and the WMS also puts on a few conferences each year. If your residency is associated with a medical school, look for an interest group. They're always looking for speakers, someone to run workshops. And if there's not an interest group associated with your medical school, think about creating one. This tends to be a very popular field among medical students, and so you might be surprised about with the amount of interest there. And then academic deliverables. It's important just in academia in general to stay productive, and a lot of these opportunities are quite interesting. So editing textbooks, becoming a peer reviewer in a journal, the Wilderness and Environmental Medicine magazine actually has a peer reviewer program. You just need to email the contact list on their website and say you want to be a peer reviewer. That will also get you in the reading most current publications within wilderness medicine. And then creative writing articles. So as we mentioned and put a plug in for this morning at our Wilderness Medicine Interest Group, the Pulse newsletter that comes out every 2 months through SAEM loves receiving wilderness medicine articles. We had 4 publications over this last year within the articles, and this is great low-hanging fruit. So if you have some sort of reflective piece that you would like to write about, this is an opportunity for you to do. And feel free to approach me after to find out how to go about doing that. I wrote a blog on telemedicine and its relationship with wilderness medicine. And so really these don't have to be giant randomized controlled trials. This could just be something that you're passionate about. It's easy to write and people are interested in reading it. In addition, as Henderson mentioned, look for your local conferences, regional or national, and apply or contact that person to be a guest speaker. And I will tell you, we run every other year a Mid-Atlantic Student Wilderness Medicine Conference at Thomas Jefferson, and I'm always looking for people to do workshops. So if you have a unique workshop idea and that's something that interests you and you want to have some experience presenting at a regional conference, come talk to me after. We absolutely would love to have you. And then as residents, you guys usually have like a 2 to 4 week elective time in almost every residency, that's right? Yeah. So utilizing that time, now that you have your medical license, to immerse yourself in something wilderness medicine. Seeing patients in a rural setting might be an option. So as a resident, I rotated in Dillingham, Alaska, and that solidified for me that I really did like working with these underserved communities in remote areas. And as a faculty, I then worked at Pine Ridge in South Dakota and got experience working with these vulnerable populations. And towards the end of your residency, you may decide to further your education and consider a wilderness medicine fellowship. And these are 1 to 2 year-long training programs that will broaden your experience within wilderness medicine, as well as introduce you to some fantastic mentors, resources, and scholarly projects. So also something to consider as a resident as you're going through. So, as you can see, even though your time is busy and you guys may be in a city, there are plenty of opportunities to still stay connected, both physically and mentally in the field. And so transitioning then to, one more thing. Before you, as you're starting to finish residency and become a fellow or faculty physician, you might find what actually interests you in wilderness medicine. What is it that really got you passionate? Is it event medicine, climate change, education, altitude, search and rescue? Or maybe it's something environmentally specific, that you grew up on a coast and you're really interested in dive medicine. And so that's how you break it down. So piecing together as you're entering attendinghood, what is it within wilderness medicine that you love so much? And so Hillary will talk a little bit about how you can keep involved as licensed physicians.
So many of the things that you can do as students and as residents, you can also do once you're done with your training, but there's even more opportunities from there. So you can get involved with different kinds of areas, such as national parks. They often need people that kind of work with their rangers to get to support the park. You can work at a ski resort with a ski patrol that often needs someone to kind of oversee them, or on a cruise ship. There's also the underserved and rural communities that are touched upon, such as the Native American reservations or rural areas. There's opportunities out in Alaska or in some of these smaller communities that are very resource limited as compared to a lot of the places that many of us work or train. And there's you can join a humanitarian, some type of nonprofit organization that do all kinds of different things that go out to communities and support them there, such as joining a disaster team. There are medical mission trips that you can get on, and these are both international and domestic options. In addition, you can get involved with like your local scouts, being a part of different sporting events. There's often a need for people to come out and be on the sports fields, just to work as someone who's there in case there's an injury, and other working as part of national organizations like here, and getting involved with different things, putting on different projects here as well. You can, even as Stuart touched upon, bring some of these principles back to even the large emergency departments that we all work in, and thinking about the patients, what your hunch would be, or what you think is the likelihood they have, what you're working up, if you didn't have the ability to run all those tests. So I often ask the residents and students that I'm working with is, if you saw this on the side of a mountain, are you concerned enough you would evacuate that person? So if you couldn't order any of these tests. So it's just a way to kind of think about things, even when you're working in a large emergency department. If you want to get out into the field, there's plenty of opportunities. You can work with different events such as ultramarathons, adventure races, the local Spartan type races, off-road triathlons. You can get involved in expeditions, both CME trips as well as expeditions that are going out for, to many teams that are going climbing. They will often take a physician on their team. You can also get involved as a physician on a team that's going out for research purposes that are far enough out there they want to take somebody with them. And then research, obviously, there's a lot of different opportunities there. That's a whole nother topic that we actually had a talk on yesterday. But there's lots of things that you can do research-wise out in the field. When it comes down to education, certainly starting interest groups, getting rotations for medical students, for residents, different distinction tracks or different parts of within the residency curriculum. Sometimes there's an opportunity to start those. And of course, fellowship, as was mentioned earlier. And, just kind of getting involved to teach more locally. You can join a search and rescue group or a DMAT disaster team to go out or to go into a national or international area as well. All right, and
That is me.
that's you, okay. All right.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for staying so late. So I know it's you're thinking there are a lot of residents in this room, faculty members and the student. You go, I'm going to finish this, and wherever I go work, I'm going to go start a program. So I'm a department chair, just as a frame of reference. So I get a lot of this. I get a lot of faculty lining up a little bit like this, coming to me at some point during the year going, please, may I have some protected time? So that's exactly what this means. They're all laughing because they know exactly what I'm talking about, being faculty. So we talk about the idea of protected hours. So when you're in an academic location and you want time to do this work, right? You want time to work on an elective. You want time to develop an off-site program for medical students. Maybe you want time for yourself to go establish, kind of your faculty and academic presence in an organization such as this, as SAEM, or in some other capacity. You need time. Otherwise, you're volunteering. So the idea of protected time is some provision of time that your institution is giving you to do this work. It's still work, just means you're not working in the department. You're working on something else. And with that comes these deliverables that were mentioned. So that time equals something. There's a concept of academic RVUs, relative evaluation unit, and also what's your academic deliverables. So I'm just going to recommend that as you go to your department head, whenever you start working, or even, you're as a resident, I mean, you can even really be really motivated. Maybe going to your residency director and going, hey, listen, I really want to start this for the program. We don't have anything like this. Can I have one less shift a block so I can run this, as you go there with a smile on your face. But you have to think about what you are presenting. So the idea is that you should be going in with a plan. This should be laid out. This is what I expect to do, and this is where my time is going to go every single week, every single month, and this is what I'm going to deliver to this department on an annual basis. And you should actually be presenting this to whoever your leadership is on a pretty regular basis. Because as much as protected time is hard to get, it's really easy to take away. And I'm not saying that being glibly, but this is something that you're in. Now, there's also the concept of buy-down time, meaning that is there another entity that can pay your department for your time as you're providing services? So examples of this might be if you have a very supportive medical school that wants you to really participate in student education, in wilderness medicine, and there's definitely at least one person at this table where that's the case. The medical student actually pays her department for Dr. Phillips' time to actually teach medical students. So that's something that you can negotiate too if you find that your medical school is going, hey, we heard you do this. We heard the kids like this. It's a recruitment strategy to bring students in. It's a way to engage staff, a way to engage students. There's an opportunity to have part of your salary covered by the school and releasing time in that regard. Or if you have an MPH and you're teaching at the public health school and you're actually getting paid to teach a course, maybe that time goes back to your department so you have that time to teach in that capacity, whether that teaching is on-site or somewhere else. And there are a lot of different iterations of this concept of buying down time, but the idea is you find another entity to pay your department for you. So, and there are ways to do this through institutional avenues. As I'm in the New York region, so we have a bunch of big health systems that have institutional needs. So I have colleagues who might run the biocontainment unit in their health system, but these are wilderness folks in their department. So they're getting buy down time because of their experience in wilderness medicine and being off overseas a lot to actually help run biocontainment, which is an essential need in our current state. Funding through academics. So this is where you're looking for grants. This is where you're doing research. And this is where you're going to look through your med school. You're going to look through organizations like ACEP and SAEM, but you might have to look far and wide to see if there's something that fits your interests and your kind of research profile. There's also other services where if you're looking for funds to cover your time where you can actually provide resource-limited medicine, this exists. Just got to think outside of the box a little bit. This might be you doing something like Indian Health Service. And you're paid for, you're federalized when you're doing Indian Health Service. Maybe that pay actually goes back through your department, and your department releases you to go work at a reservation for 2 weeks, a year. So, and these are things that you can negotiate. No one's going to bring this to you and ask you if you want to do this. These are things that you can bring and try to figure out, because all these activities and what we're getting to is really valuable to departments. People like wilderness, just like Dr. Harris mentioned. In 2005, there were 2 fellowships. We're now broaching, they're 18, they're going to be 19. This is just a growing kind of specialty. So that reflects the interest and value of this, is particularly as we've gone global in society, right? Everyone who's finishing residency in med school now has grown up seeing the rest of the world through the internet. So we all feel like we're interconnected, and people actually want to get out there. But services to underserved, side hustles, I kind of do this tongue-in-cheek, but things like remote medicine, if you've ever heard of this organization, they get government grants to provide services to remote areas. You could actually even think about doing something like that and getting that money back to your department. So as much as you're actually kind of doing a second job, that second job allows you to kind of do the work that you want to do with money going back to your department to cover your time away. So opportunities for funding and supporting your areas, again, small projects, maybe coverage, but American Alpine Club, DAN, some scholarship funding, National Science Foundation, kind of all of these things to look for. If you've heard any of the other talks, we keep talking about the WMS grant opportunities. No one is going to cover much of a salary with the WMS grants, but it's really the few grants that are dedicated for the study of wilderness medicine. And then industry funding is another area, because I think as a lot of the work that's done with the wide cast net that wilderness medicine covers, there's a lot of industries that are covered as well. Sports medicine, just altitude medicine, marine medicine, all these sort of things where products need to be tested by people. All right, I think it's time for breakout sessions.
So the way this was originally organized was we were going to then introduce each other in a little bit more depth so you could see what a wilderness medicine career looks like with different people, because if you talk to one person interested in wilderness medicine and another person, you're going to get different answers from pretty much everyone out there. There's not one specific track to follow. Since we're running a little bit late because of the IT issues in the beginning, I think it might be easiest just for us to introduce ourselves, show a little bit what our career looks like day to day, and then we can let kind of people approach us with specific questions after, and we'll be happy to discuss more. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, great. Sorry, there I am. So my day-to-day activities, first and foremost, I'm an ER doc. There are very, very few jobs out there that are going to be 100% wilderness medicine in the field, if that's like the unicorn. So if you have someone who's a medical student that maybe approaches you saying, I really love wilderness medicine, do I have to go into emergency medicine? That's not true. You really have to love your job first. After being an RDoc, the other things that kind of sprinkle my wilderness medicine career is that I'm the faculty advisor for the medical school at Thomas Jefferson for their Wilderness and Disaster Medicine Interest Group. And with that, that's how I organize the biennial conference. In addition, I have been working with the Indian Health Service in Pine Ridge, and essentially the government will buy your shifts from your institution, so you don't always have to make those up, which is nice because then you're not coming back and working double time and when you just worked really hard for 2 weeks with the Indian Health Service. The thing I've been doing the last 2 years is one of my favorite activities, and that's the Wilderness Medicine elective in Breckenridge, Colorado, where we spent a month with fourth-year medical students, and one out of the two course directors for this. And in general, I just have an interest in education, wilderness or not, so I'm the Block 1 director for the first years in their medical school, and this also helps get me some protected time for education. And I have been active in the SAEM interest group and absolutely loved it, and I'm stepping down as the chair this year. So that's kind of what my day-to-day life looks like, and it's awesome. I feel like I have complete job satisfaction and very happy where I'm at right now. I can just, if you want to talk in the microphone, I'm happy just to advance for y'all, or you can stand, either one.
Kind of short, so I take advantage of getting to stand up. Okay, so I obviously also work in the emergency department, and that is a good bit of my my time is clinical. I also do research, so these are pictures of a recent research project last year that went to Nepal, and we did a bunch of different testing during one of the WMS treks, CME trips. And then I do education. I have a couple of different student electives that I help with, one for first and second years and another one for fourth years, as well as, teaching at these types of events, with SAM and with ASAP. And then kind of as well as teaching and education, MedWar is Medical Wilderness Adventure Race, and so I've been involved with MedWar races since I was a student, and they started in 2001, and I got involved in 2002. So it's been kind of a while, a lot of time that these races have been going on, and now we've been expanding. And our newest race is here tomorrow, so we're excited about that. And then, of course, I have my own personal interests in going out and spending time outdoors.
Oh, sorry, Stuart.
Again, I'm a full-time clinician. I see patients. That's how I pay the bills. We get some money from the DOD over the years, and some from the university, and some from the medical school and other places. But for the most part, the vast majority of what we do is funded internally. So it pays to be efficient with limited resources. With those resources, we've been pretty lucky just in that we've got a pretty broad reach of talent we get to play with. Certainly something that's absolutely central to what I do is our fellowship. We have extraordinary people who are I'm lucky enough to hang out with and call friends for the rest of my life, which is a good place to be. We work closely with the disaster team, both independently and teaching within the disaster team. Research is active in what we do just because, again, so much of our research has been born of standing in line at Coffee Central, and Vicki Noble, our kind of the reigning queen of ultrasound in the country, is an old dear friend. It's like, hey, we ought to think about, that was, 15 years ago, and things just have very organically developed, and so some bench research that I don't do, but we have people who do it, and again, they reach out to us because they look at us and say, hey, you're going to these places that we can learn new things. George Church at the medical school is trying to reintroduce mammoth to Siberia, and we're working with him on that. So there's some fun things out there that if you're kind of the subject area expert, people reach out to you. Anything else I do? Obviously, first and foremost, I'm a dad. That's what drives my world, so that's not up there, but it clearly fits within that Venn diagram. And I'm going to apologize just because I got to run for a flight, but everybody knows how to find me, and if you have any questions at all, I'm completely available.
So I didn't put up my main job, which is being an ER doc, because I do all these other things for free, basically. That's as everyone's alluded to. I do get buy down from EMS. I'm the EMS medical director. I do critical care transport, take care of our helicopters and ground units, and also a county EMS agency. So I do that that's actually something I get academic time for. But what I do is I really work in a lot of my wilderness stuff around some of those things and try to do a lot of the pre-hospital and wilderness medicine along those lines. And I use the time that I can get for that. I kind of borrow a little bit of that sometimes, making sure I have all of my other EMS duties taken care of. And I try to do the other things, like we just started a fellowship this year for our wilderness medicine fellowship. We just started this year, so that's my fellow and I at a whitewater, festival teaching shoulder reduction dislocation to, stoned kayakers, which is awesome. They're already anesthetized. And I have 2 kids and my wife, and I try to get outside and do things as much as possible, build a cave that they don't get collapsed in. The expedition medicine, go out on trips whenever I get a chance, but it's all volunteer. So a lot of that you're going to do because you love it, and you try to free up time by smushing things in as much as you can. And I've been really lucky doing a lot of education with medical students, starting a conference for them, and being involved with as the interest group director. And we've been asked to do a wilderness medicine module for the orientation for medical students each year. We did it this year. We're doing it again for the new incoming students. And do adventure race support, multi-day or multi-mile race support for that, where you just kind of walk along and kind of pick up flags and point, kick on people, make sure they're still alive. But again, it's all volunteer because my day job allows me to do that, and I have time off because of our great schedule that allows me to do that. So these are the great things that keep me fired up and keep me excited about emergency medicine, because I can practice those things outside of the hospital doing these things.
It's a very supportive audience. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, like I said, I'm a ED department chair, so most of my time is spent doing stuff like metrics. You guys are done residency, get ready, or operational improvements, lean processing, things like that. But at the same token, I went into admin about 5.5 years ago or so, and I thought I'm just going to wind down the wilderness education, which was what I was always involved in. And in fact, I'm probably as equally involved, if not more now, than I ever was. And being at a new medical school, who thought this was great. So I'm, de facto director of wilderness medicine for Hofstra School of Medicine. And the way that I've actually been able to continue this practice is by integrating wilderness medicine into our resident conference days. So we have several resident days a year, and into undergraduate medical education. So on our EM kind of Northeast conferences, we have at least 4 or 5 hour workshop a year. So able to actually continue with the academic side. Unfortunately, you're probably never going to catch me doing any more support. It's going to be on education on these topics, but it's actually really important at the undergraduate level, as we're talking about globalization, integrating these skills for students who do want to go away, or residents who want to go away, whether that's in a disaster capacity, global health capacity, or wilderness capacity. So it's actually really enjoyable to kind of bridge multiple worlds. And I still work clinically, but only like 20%.
So, sorry again about the late start, and we're going to kind of, instead of doing the breakout sessions just for time-wise, we'll just take any questions from the group, and then we'll hang around just to talk with you all individually. If you have questions you'd rather just ask us in private. Any questions from anyone at this point? Yeah. It depends on where you are going. So if you're traveling internationally, every country is very different. Some countries it might be actually you can get a practicing license before you can get most of the work done before you actually go there. Others might require you live there, and it could be an 8-week process, and that might not actually be conducive for the time you have off. Domestically, it's much easier. So if there is something that if you have if you're board certified in emergency medicine, that's going to carry over regardless. But internationally, there'll be a lot of variance.
Yeah, part of that is working with your health system. If there's something of benefit, you can be indemnified by your med mal insurance, particularly if you're working for a health system or a group that's multi-state. So that would help you. In some instances, like race support, that might be multiple states. You might actually have to get multiple temporary licenses for states, but usually the race organizer is going to help you do that. If you're doing event medicine in terms of malpractice and things like that, there is opportunity that exists for the race organizer to buy 1 day malpractice for you or 2 day for events. If you're going to travel to go support, because I see Walt here, an Ironman, outside of your jurisdiction, where your insurance might not cover that, race support often has the ability to purchase these things for you. And you should ask for it. If they don't offer it, you should actually bring it up and ask for it.
And you can get you can actually get your medical center, your department, your medical school to be a sponsor of some of these events, and that way you're there in the official capacity, and that way you're covered in that respect, which is how I get around a lot of it. Don't ask, don't tell, but you just sort of like, oh, we should be sponsored for this. We should help out with this. They want us to do some volunteer medical support. And my chair is very supportive of that sort of thing because I get the residents involved to come out and do it. We'll get medical students to come out and do it. And I generally do that in the states that I'm licensed in already. So that's pretty much predominantly where I've done those things. The expedition stuff is more of an informal agreement with the people I'm doing the trip with. And I'm not taking money for it, and I'm not doing it through a commercial company. These are all non-commercial trips that I'm doing for the expedition type thing. So if you were going on a commercial expedition, you would need to make sure that you were licensed and have, I would definitely have a med mal policy and an umbrella policy as well for that, which is a completely different sort of discussion.
Priya, did you have a question? I saw your hand up.
So I'm in a phase of my career where I'm back Dr. Stewart's presentation was actually impressed me a lot. Feeling really focusing more on clinical practice and stepping away from all this tax and yada. And I've done a lot of the street medicine. So I'm curious, being that this is a topic of urban wilderness, and particularly Dr. Stewart's presentation, a lot of this, so I'm not focused, but the sort of transitioning those skill sets into caring for the unsheltered, homeless, and being out on the street, and potentially even sort of, I won't use the word diverting from the emergency department, but addressing clinical needs for an emergency department has to potentially be committed and all the rest. Have you, as a specialty or a group of providers, particularly those really with medical schools in the urban centers, adjusted others who are doing more?
Does your beer with Band-Aids count?
Well, no. No, that beer with Band-Aids may lead to street medicine, but that's actually public health and EMS is probably going to be your best avenue for that. EMS has, in some of the places they've started sort of the community paramedicine or mobile integrated healthcare product, and that's where some of the local EMS agencies have paired with health systems, or some of the health systems have their own EMS agencies, and they will go out and do, basically treat and release. They don't transport, no transport. So go out, provide care for a patient, and then come back. But most of those have been for chronic conditions, for folks who have like COPD, CHF, trying to prevent, it's the healthcare system's way to try and prevent readmissions so that they get paid for those visits. So it's cheaper for them to pay the like a paramedic to go out and do those things. But pairing up with them to expand that out to an underserved population that is in need, that has no access to care, that's something that would be, I think, really desirable by some of the city populations and some of the health systems, because you can say, look, we can prevent this many people coming to the ER with these minor complaints, and we know that these folks coming in are not going to have insurance. They're going to be a large drain on your organization. So how can we help take care of these folks and help the bottom line as well? So you would probably want to get data in the areas you're at and look at.
Oh, no, I'm not asking for me. I'm actually arguing.
Oh, okay.
I'm asking for you as a group. You guys, and forgive you.
Oh, no.
Everybody in the room, but the stereotype of wilderness medicine is yes, like the college.
Oh, yeah.
Or like people who have like $1 million a year who go work for yourself, right? So
Yeah.
it's not for most, it's not for those who need, but the skill set
Mhm.
really
It is, and that's something I think we've tried to talk about, particularly when we did the Advanced EM workshop on Tuesday. We really talk about taking your skill set away from the mountain. It's not always on Mount Everest. It's not in the parking lot of REI, but taking it to the folks who actually need the care where they need it. Like I said, I do a lot on the side of the soccer fields or wherever, and so I think most of us really do try to get the students and the learners to embrace the fact that they can deliver care anywhere, and wilderness medicine is a great sort of foundation for that, to incorporate the care that you learn about and how to do in a ultra cool medical center, but deliver it when you're not there to somebody else who needs it when you have no resources. Because truly, they have no resources in that setting. And that's very admirable that you're doing that. I was just thinking, if you're going to do something like that, getting the data from the health system so you could partner with them and you could actually get some money for it, which would be his bucket.
I was going to say, as far as a specialty taking a stance, you mean within the community to help some sort of preventative or health need of the underserved? Is that?
No, I just think it's a skill set
Yeah,
that is not only for like mountains and deserts.
absolutely.
Really very suitable to the unsheltered populations, right? So it's just switching
Yeah.
the focus of where you use that skill set. Is it only on the trip, or can you use it like, right? And that's the kind of thing that like first finding the workforce, particularly for the century.
Yeah.
Can have tremendous impact. So again, it's the same skill set,
Mm-hmm.
very low resource, maybe not telemedicine, right? But like all of the same things, you like hear out of some bakery incidents from like, Massachusetts or something like that, and you address it. So because the space on it is unsheltered homeless, I think very easy, which is like you lose crew. That's the and they will come to you. There are but it's sort of using the skill set to prevent overly coming to amputation or all of those things. It would be the exact same skill set that you use in the wilderness, but it could be just in
So where are you at? Philly? So you should have an elective with the med students.
I'm taking it away from myself.
But seriously, I mean, an elective with the medical students or with the residents, or even have it set up to where the resident comes once a month or once, every block you get a resident for a shift or two or something.
I mean, I think there's a
Yeah.
I think, again, it goes back to the same, the core of clinical skills, diagnostics, and actual like physical demand in very dire situations, right? Like the core of what makes emergency situations run institutions, what makes them specialists, but for those most vulnerable, most
Yeah.
aspects of
Well, so emergency medicine is any care, anytime. So wilderness medicine is any care, anytime, any place. So it's just basically the same. You just add in, you remove the location. So it's the same thing. So you're on point.
These are awesome comments. Are there any other questions, or we can just hang back at this point for to chat with any of you if you have some more things to talk about? All right. Thank you guys
Thank y'all
so
much
much.
for sticking around.